Right, hi everybody, Mr. Bowen here again. Just a quick one today, just to talk about how to revise ready for the essay for Romeo and Juliet. So one of these is just absolutely ideal if you've got one of those. I'll talk you through how I would use it. But just to give you some basic ideas first, everything seems to be based around 5 in English. So we have 5 quotes, 5 key ideas, 5 paragraphs to write a story. 5 is a great point to go. So whenever you're doing any revision, let's say we're looking at our character, what I always try and think of is try and say 5 things about each character. This is part of your plan. You should always plan before you write, and then if you get a chance at the end, you check. Any sort of writing needs 1, 2, 3 ways of doing things. So let's take, say, Friar Lawrence, for example. How would I revise Friar Lawrence? Now, the thing is that I know lots about the Friar Lawrence because I've been doing this for years, but you may not. So it's going to be important that you use some of the revision materials I've made available for you. I'll need your link if you look. Just before half term, I think I sent you out a link that had some stuff on there for each of the characters. Pick a character and then see what you can remember about it. Now, I was thinking about this lesson, so I thought, well, what would I say about Friar Lawrence? If the question is about Friar Lawrence, I've got to try and pick 5 things I want to say about him. So the first thing I'd say that he gives Romeo advice. I think he tries to do his best. He always tries to fix stuff. He tries to think of a way out of stuff for the difficult situations that they're in, Romeo and Juliet. So he does try and do his best. He comes up with that plan for Juliet, and let's make sure we say it's the potion, not the poison. That's something different later on. So it's the potion that he gives her, which is like a sleeping drug, which makes it look like she's dead when she's not. I also think that at the end he's a bit of a coward because he runs away from when he can hear, he knows that Romeo's dead, Juliet's just woken up, and he goes, flipping heck, it hasn't worked, we've got to get out of here, and he runs and leaves Juliet behind. So that makes me think that he's a bit of a coward. And then I'm probably going to say that he marries Romeo and Juliet. That's probably worth saying if I'm talking about him. So once I've got my 5 ideas that I want to do paragraphs on, I want to try and say what would be the best plan. So I'm going to go 5. That's the last one. I'm going to say that's his first. I might try and say that's second. Let's go 3rd for marrying, and comes up with the plan for Juliet. So that would mean now I've done a little bit of planning. I've worked out what I'm going to say roughly, the key idea of each of my paragraphs, and I've got an order, so that would work. I'm just thinking, well, what does that mean then? He gives them advice. Well, he's like the male version of the nurse. The nurse does the same thing for Juliet, so I can remember that. Male version of the nurse. Whereas the nurse is there for Juliet, Friar Lawrence is there for Romeo. He's giving advice. He's trying to help. He wants to help stop the fight. He tries to do his best. Let's have a little think. Remember, this is a 40-minute question, so you don't have to write loads and loads and loads. He's trying to do his best. He wants to stop the fight. We're also saying that he wants to. Let's have a think. Tries to do his best. He comes up with lots of plans. He can be a bit reckless, I suppose, doing things without checking. So he sort of takes risks, giving he's convinced that Romeo is going to get the letter that's going to explain what's happening with Juliet's potion, but it doesn't happen. He doesn't really think it through, but he is trying to do the best thing for them. The plan for Juliet, the potion, that's a response. It's quite extreme though, isn't it? What's he going to do with that? How's he going to sort out Juliet's terrible predicament? She's already married. She's been told she's got to marry somebody else. She can't be married to 2 people at once. So this is quite a drastic response that he comes up with. And it works, but it does go wrong, as we said. A coward, we've also mentioned about how he leaves Juliet behind in the tomb. He tries to save his own skin, and he marries Romeo and Juliet. So that's his way of stopping the fight. So if the two families are joined together, they're not separate, they are together. It's going to be harder to keep it going, sort of them versus us. Okay, good. Right. He's also, I'm trying to think of some of the things he says as well about her. For number one, that he's given advice, Romeo calls him my ghostly father. Now, ghostly is the key word here. Father is what you call a priest. Hello, father, that kind of stuff. Ghostly is to do with spirits. So this is his spiritual father. He's somebody who's there looking after his soul, after his religious well-being, see if he's all right. So that sort of tells me. And he also, at one point, he gets known as this holy man. People do believe him. Even when Juliet is worried about taking the potion because she thinks, oh my goodness, is he going to try and kill me to try and cover his back? She sort of talks herself around that and goes, no, actually, he is quite a nice guy. I don't think that's going to work. A second one, I might say, well, when he tries to do the best, and it also marries as well, when he marries Romeo and Juliet, trying to do the best and coming up with the idea first, we could say that he's there to turn your family's rancour or poison to pure love. So all this hate and nastiness, he says, if we get married, then we can kind of flip that round and it'll suddenly become a really positive thing. So that's his idea, that's his motivation. That's why he thinks it's a little bit selfish, perhaps. He sort of tells Romeo off for sort of like ditching Rosaline as quickly as he did, but then he sees that there is a positive potential outcome for this. So that would work. The rancour, well, when he talks about the plan for Juliet, he sort of says he can spy a kind of hope. A kind of hope. Now, that's not the most, full-throated promise, guarantee, a kind of hope. But he says there's a possibility, there's a chance we might be able to get away with this. And that's that positivity, really. He says if you're willing to kill yourself, then we might be able to pull this off, where you pretend to be dead and you're not actually dead. The cowardly bit, he does say to her, which is quite interesting, I dare no longer stay. So that shows us that he's there for a bit, but then he just can't carry on and he runs away. He thinks about himself. He's scared that he's going to get caught in the tomb with Juliet and Romeo's body. The fact that he marries them as well. What's that? These violent delights have violent ends. So that's another great quote for Friar Lawrence. The violent delights have violent ends. It means don't go full on, basically. And he does say at one point, love moderately, take your time, just enjoy it, live in the moment, don't go too full on, don't be too intense, because violent delights have violent ends. So the more intense it is, the more the come down will be, and the more you'll crash that relationship, have violent ends. So that's something that you could come in there as well. So we're starting to get a little bit of an idea, and obviously with every quote we're trying to say what it means and what it could also mean. What does it mean? So put it in your own words, what could it mean? And if you're not sure as well, other ways around it is to start thinking about, well, why? Why is he saying that? How is he trying to get them to think? So what's the upshot going to be? What's going to happen next then? These are all things you can be thinking about. So that's what we've done for Friar Lawrence. If we were to try, well, let's have a look at what it says here. In Friar Lawrence, in the book, we have one page just on Friar Lawrence. So if you were to get a revision book like this, now it's slightly different to, say, a science revision book. Science is full of reference and information. All of these things here are opinions. This is what the guy who's written it thinks about Friar Lawrence. Now, you've got two choices here. Three, really. You can either believe it all and write it, you can disagree with it all and write it, or you can do a little bit of both. You can sort of pick and choose which bits you go with and which bits you don't. I would say the easiest thing to do is to agree with it, but if you're genuinely feeling sort of strongly about it, and most importantly you can back it up, then go for it. Say what you think. Now you see how they've divided it up. We've got ourselves the title at the start, who it is. The trouble with CGP is that they sort of talk to you like they're a bro or a G. So you've got to be careful sometimes that they're not being a bit too flippant or informal. But they're trying to make it as simple and straightforward as you can. But the most important thing for me is 1, 2, 3 yellow bits. So I've got here a little index card which can be quite useful. You don't need an index card, you can just have a sheet of paper will do the same thing. I would say, right, I'm talking about Friar Lawrence, and I've got my 3 key ideas that I want to put down. 1, 2, 3. I've got his gives advice. I've said that he's helpful. See where I'm using the red bit to try and pick it out? Helpful. I'm basically trying to turn this page of all that writing into something a lot smaller that I can get my head around, and they're suspicious things, or a bit sort of stupid, I suppose. Suspicious things. So he's come up here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas there. Now it's up to you. You can kind of try and fit all 5 there, or you could maybe just pick the best 2, the 2 that you think you're going to remember, the 2 that makes you go, oh yeah, fair enough, that's already into your head. But get them in there, because then you might want to say that he's a father figure to Romeo. You might want to say he kind of knows about the herbs, which is where he knows about the potion. So that me get it in there. If I'm saying helpful, again, I've got 4 bullet points here, so I might just pick 2 of them that I think I'm going to remember. So the fact that he's quite surprised that Rosaline has been sort of dropped and that Romeo has moved on to Juliet. So he's certainly sensible. So he's kind of, and you'd expect that's kind of normal, surprise that Romeo has moved on so quickly. If he loved her as much as he said he loved her, then you'd have more than like 6 hours between seeing her, thinking about her, and then forgetting about her. And then the suspicious things, you might turn around. Again, there's 4 ideas here, and I'm just going to write down another one there. I'm going to say that he's risky, so he's prepared to take risks with people's lives. And it says there, faking the death is extreme and dangerous. And the fact that we've said that before, the fact that he's cowardly and abandons Juliet in the tomb. So we've got ourselves some ideas that we want to. Someone says risky. And what do we say there? He's cowardly. Yeah, so I've got some things I can do. I've just used that page, and I've done this in, about 3-4 minutes. And I've basically got it down to a couple of little ideas. I'm going to flip it over and try, and again, it helps me by putting little speech marks in and underlines them. So I can see where the quotes are. And I might pick out, I don't know, love moderately. We said that, didn't we? That was that one there. Love moderately. And it's possible you could do something like this, do like a little quote explosion. So I've said there, he's wise. He wants to take your time and enjoy it. And then you might want to say that actually it's not what happens. Romeo and Juliet are so intense over the 3-4 days that they're together, it ends up with them both choosing to commit suicide. So it's not what Romeo and Juliet do. It's what we've said before, is the great word contrast. We've got a contrast there with what the advice is and what they actually do. So I've got my quote, and I've got a couple of things on the back about my Friar Lawrence. So that looks a lot nicer than that. A little bit of work went into it, but I've got myself a really nice last minute revision guide for myself. So I hope that works. Quickly, just to say again, if we do want another one about love, if the question's about love, which is a theme, an idea that runs through the story, the play, the text, through the play or through the text, let's say. If we pick out love, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to go, right, what sort of love have we got in this story? Well, we've got parental love. So I've got Romeo and Dad. Lord Montague's really worried about him. I've got the true love, which is obviously Romeo and Juliet. That's a paragraph on that. Friendship, love. So sense of being loyal. So we might have Romeo and Mercutio. Unrequited love, which is like a one-way street where one person is handing it out, feeling it, and the other person isn't. So that's got to be Romeo and Rosaline. And then we have and then sexual love. It does get mentioned a bit. The people who do it mostly are the nurse, or who make little crude jokes, or Mercutio. Mercutio's another one that's kind of a bit rude and crude, really. When he takes the mickey after the Capulet party, he says Romeo's been obsessed with Rosaline's quivering thigh, which has got a little bit of a, obviously a sexual connotation to it. Any other quote? And we do the same thing again. We just try and write down a couple of things we could say about each one. Easy. So he's genuinely worried. And he cares. He cares. But we also know there is that Romeo isn't comfortable talking to his dad, which is why Dad asks Benvolio. Lord Montague says, "Right, come on, Benvolio, you need to sort it out because he's not talking to me." Which is possibly like a lot of teenagers, but you know what I mean. So we've got ourselves as parental. Giving me an example and say a couple of things about it, and we can do that all the way through. Another quote you might want to pick out here. The true love is the I never saw beauty. I never saw true beauty till this night is another really easy one that people remember quite easily. And again, that's the sense of I never saw, it's love at first sight. And this is the real deal. That's what true is meeting in there. It's real, not like the Rosaline where he was giving it and getting nothing back. And I think, that should sort of help. So to give that a go, try and get yourself some index cards or even little bits of paper that'll get some of those ideas. Either if you've not got the book itself, then take out a look at my EduLink notes that I sent out. There's lots of stuff on there for you for each of the characters and the themes, and get it from one page of writing from your teacher or from the revision guide, and get it into something that's doable, something short and sweet like that. Alright, well I hope that helps. Cheers now.